Doug. Welcome to episode 4
I'm
of
glad to be
Past
here.
Present. Yeah, no, I'm glad you are too. So, before we get started, anything going on, Doug? Anything you want to tell us about?
I'm enjoying the auctions right now. We got Heritage going on. We got REA. Got some upcoming auctions coming up soon. Some big cards. So I'm pretty excited.
Well, I've actually joined REA, and I'm a bidder in this next auction. So maybe
Congratulations.
when we, well, thank you. Like I'm growing up. I'm moving into my next phase as a collector here. I'm becoming swimming with the sharks a little bit.
We just got to make sure that we're not bidding on the same material.
Well, I'm definitely going to consult with you before I bid on something I think you might be interested in buying, Doug. Don't want to compete, and prevent you from getting something cool because, I think we're pretty separate, so I'm not sure we overlap too much. But
No,
there
we
could always
don't.
be that Mathewson card or a Cobb card that both of us kind of like.
Right.
Um, so maybe this next auction will have wins from both of us that we can discuss, and which would be
Yeah,
really cool.
that would be fun. That would be
Yeah,
fun.
the one lot I showed you that I was really interested in, I don't think you'll be bidding on that one, so I think that would be a unique one for me.
No, I think that'd be a nice, unique auction for you to win.
I'm crossing my fingers. I'm hoping I get that one. So,
Right.
all right. So today we talked about going through me and Doug's top 10 cards that we're looking to buy or get in 2025, and I'll predicate it by saying, the goal isn't to get all 10. It's to get a list together of what we're looking for and hoping to get. If we can get all 10, that'd be great. But the idea is to what cards should we be focused on to try to get, and we're both pretty advanced collectors. I don't know if that's a good term for some folks, but when you get to a certain point in your collection, they all the cards then get a lot tougher to find, and sometimes it costs us a lot more. So the idea that we'd get all 10 of them would be tough, but I think it's the idea of getting a focus.
Right. The list just helps with your focus. Exactly. It's sometimes you can go to an auction house or even a big card show and just get lost in your own mind with all this new stuff. And if you're not, narrowly focused, you get sidetracked.
Well, I will say, Doug, the one thing I've always been impressed with you is when we go to the national, I get very easily distracted, and I'll get, I'm kind of like, oh, look at that thing. You're very focused. You know what you're looking for. So I'm hoping to be more focused like Doug in the future.
That's because I have a limited budget. I just have
Hey,
to be careful with my hobby money.
we all have budgets. I think that's the good thing
Yes.
about collectors is we all got our budgets.
Right.
All right, so so I did a little honorable mention, and so we'll take turns as we go through our top 10 list here. I did put together a little honorable mention of cards that theoretically should be on my list because they're either parts of a set I'm building or they're just cards I've been looking for a while. The 61 Cons Clemente, I've already purchased. Actually bought that card, so I'll be showing that off at some point.
Nice job.
Um, Thank you. It was raw, but it was a card that I've been wanting a long time. I almost have a full 61 Pirates Cons team set now, so I'm really excited about that.
This isn't a competition. Just because you got the first one on the list already doesn't mean that you're out ahead, right?
No, it's definitely not. No, this is the honorable mentions. This is even in the top 10. So this is just
Gotcha.
like cards that I'm pretty sure. Like another thing too is like these are cards that are a little bit easier to get, maybe price wise and stuff, but they're cards that are available. Maybe the 68 Venezuelan Clemente, a little tough, but these are cards I should be able to pick up as my normal collecting journey. As I look at auctions and just so these are cards I'm not as worried about trying to find. My top 10 list is really the stuff that's harder to get or
Yeah.
the cost is a lot higher, so I'm gonna have to do some maneuvering to get them.
Well, that's all part of the fun.
Yeah, like the how sometimes is very fun. Like how you get a card, you may have to sell, trade, do some different things. And I know you're already
Right.
kind of positioning yourself for the national this year.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
So here
the hunt is on.
the hunt is on. It's afoot.
It's a foot.
All right, Doug, your first one.
Okay, so in our last episode, we kind of highlighted this set, and we both said that we thought it was sort of an undervalued set. And I've already made the decision that I have two of the colors that I think there could be a possibility of 5 to 6 different colors for each player. And I have the maroon and pink. And so I am on the hunt for either white, the baby blue. I believe there's a gray also. So I would like to put the rainbow of colors, all the different colors together for the be the Ferguson Bakery felt and try to get the full rainbow colors. I think that would be a really neat goal.
So, Doug, do you know anyone that has a rainbow of their favorite player?
No, I would like to know that if anybody, any of the people want to comment. If you've got some of these, I do see them occasionally on YouTube. Um, so I would be very interested if anybody has the full rainbow of a certain player, or even the full rainbow of different players, all the different colors. I think that would be a really neat project also.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool set, and I do love the new SGC holder. It is fantastic.
Yes, I agree. We got a comment on our last episode. Somebody chimed in. He said that he was a little surprised that SGC hadn't got any negative feedback from putting the pennant in up and down with the point at the bottom. They thought that maybe it could do damage to it, which but both of mine look to be stable and placed in there. They're kind of cut the perfect size and they are inset in there, so they don't move around at all. But yeah, I
Well, that's
really,
one of the
really, really like the new SGC holder for these pennants.
and that's one of the advantages of SGC is that they have the ability to custom fit their insert.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I had posted on um, the Net 54 boards that I was interested in purchasing some, and a gentleman said he had a white one, which
Mm.
is what this one right here is. He has the
Yeah.
white one. He said it's not graded, and he said he would send me a picture, but I haven't received the picture yet on it.
Well, good luck. I mean, hopefully it's one that meets your condition requirements, but they're really
Right.
cool, and I think yeah, it'd be awesome to see you get closer to that rainbow.
Yeah, if it's not dog-legged or been sewed together like a lot of them have been and have the jagged edges, I'm probably definitely interested in it.
Well, awesome, and obviously getting graded by SGC is an awesome option to and for display purposes too.
Yes, I agree.
All right, moving to my number 10, and this is one that you know will be tough. Just put it there. It's a tough card.
Right.
Um, I'm kind of moving on to like Chief Bender's been my really primary pre-war focus for a long time, and I love the story of Grover Alexander. He for one thing, he was a great pitcher. He is considered a top tier Hall of Famer. Big time war, when he was active, so he was really good.
Yeah, if you look
Um,
at his stats, they're just um, hardly anybody compares to his stats. His WAR was off the hook, and you compare his cards to Walter Johnson or Kirstie Mathewson, and they pale in comparison.
quit baseball, and then he became a full blown alcoholic, and he kind of disappeared, and he
Yeah,
never self promoted like some of the players did, from his time period. Um, so there's a lot of things about him that just kind of like makes people kind of like, oh, he didn't
yeah,
have this like kind of like life after baseball.
yeah. And
So,
he didn't hardly sign anything. So
yeah,
yeah, the popularity wasn't there.
no, and I think that's the thing is like he doesn't have any warm and fuzzy stories about him, like from a kid's perspective. Like he's not the player you'd be like, oh, emulate your life after this guy, because he was pretty much someone who lived hard and kind of almost like despite himself was successful, right?
Yeah.
But you know, as a player though, he was pretty dominant as a player. His cards are hard to find. He's in a lot of sets. And he's kind of a player that I would also say, I think one of the topics that I would like for me and Doug to take on one of these days is there is between the T206 set and the 1933 Gaudi set, players who have cards in that gap. I call it like there's a gap there where there's not a lot of sets being made. Um, a lot of great players have cards and were great during that time period, and they don't have a lot of cards that you see today because they're just a lot harder to find.
Right.
And Grover Alexander is one of those players that he doesn't have a T206. He luckily is in this set, the Cracker Jack set. He doesn't have a Gaudi. So he's in a lot of sets that are strip cards, sporty news, or kind of like the sets that are not as popular because they're black and white photos. So it's like,
Right.
there's a lot of players like that, and I think it'd be interesting to look at, like how that affects their value in terms of just from a player perspective or even popularity. Because to me, like if you're not in one of those big sets, you don't seem to be as popular.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. If he wasn't in the Cracker Jack sets, I don't think that he's going to have as high a price cards. I think being in the Cracker Jack set really brings up the prices on his material. Plus, that was pretty early in his career too.
And it also, from my understanding, maybe you can correct me on this, the Grover Alexander seems to be a lot harder to find. It feels like it's a short print to me.
It, I agree. I don't think it's a short printed card. I just think that um, it is one of the better key cards from the set because he, like you said, he doesn't have a lot of cards, and the Cracker Jack cards are so popular. So this is
Yeah,
a
I mean,
early one that everybody wants.
yeah, I mean, I think this is without a doubt probably his best card,
Yes,
um, and most
I agree.
popular card. Um, I mean, some of the older, I mean, we talked about, he's got like a Z-Nut card, I believe. Um, he's got some cards that are really hard to find, really
Yeah,
tough cards.
the
But
Fatima
yeah, the
player set
Fatima. Yeah.
of 1914 is also that. Now that one actually is a short printed. The Grover Alexander and the Walter Johnson are both extremely hard to find. And
And that just kind of
yeah,
feeds into the whole thing is that even when he has cards, they're hard to find, or they're
they
from
are.
sets that are just very tough. So
Now,
it's going to be tough.
would you ever consider the 15 Cracker Jack?
I would. I mean, I think either way. I mean, I think we all would agree that the 14 is sort of like is the most desirable. But yeah,
Right.
like with Chief Bender, I have a 15. I don't have a 14 yet.
Yeah.
So I definitely would.
Yeah.
So all right, so we'll move on to Doug's number 9.
Now, this chart, when we set this up, was in no particular order for me. Now,
Ah,
it might have been for Jason. So, but this one here, the standard biscuit, is sort of a ghost card. Um, when we was looking at VCP sales, this auto card in a PSA 3 is the only one that VCP is showing any sales on. And
mhm.
if you look at the pop reports for both SGC and PSA, this is the only graded card. And it just happens to be auto. Now, I'm not saying that there's not some raw cards out there that have not been graded because obviously he is in the set. So this one's kind of one of my ghost cards, and it doesn't mean that I'm still won't be looking for it, but I doubt that I'm going to find that card this year. But um, it's one of my goals, so I'm putting it on my goal list for 2025.
Were you tracking this card when it sold?
This one here, no, I. This was probably, 'This 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 was probably, ' from 24, I don't even look at the auto cards, to be honest, because
Mm.
they're usually under um, the I think it's under a category by itself under VCP at the very bottom. And so
Yes.
it kind of gets overlooked with me. Um, and this one was just added to the PSA. I think it's a newer cert, probably from late 23 or early 24.
Yeah, it's definitely a newer holder.
Right. It's a newer holder. So this one kind of snuck in on me.
Well, price
Especially at
wise,
that price. I would have been very interested at that price. Even paying the premium for the signature.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just found it interesting that the only one that's available that we know about was autographed.
Right. Yeah, I would like to think that there's some out there in the wild that have not been sent in for grading.
Well, this is definitely one of those ones where, on your end, like you mentioned, kind of a ghost card, be very tough to find.
Right. And I think some people, if they're not concerned about backs, somebody may have this card raw and they think it's a E121 because it's the exact same photo, it's the
Mhm.
exact same card. It just has a different back. This has the standard biscuit advertising on the back. So
Well, I think that's the one thing about when you go to a card show, you can dig through some cards and you can actually maybe find something like this that someone doesn't realize is kind of tough.
right, yeah, this
Um,
this this is a tough one. This is certainly a tough one.
and the thing I love about Doug's cards is like, I'm learning a lot about these sets that I don't know about. And the thing about it, it's like a lot of these sets have Bender and Alexander in them too. So it's like, there's kind of like I'm learning what sets have other cards in it that I might be interested in.
Yeah,
All right, number 9 for me. This is one I talked about a little bit, the E91 Cy Young. Now I've owned this card before in various grades. I think I've had 2 copies. I saw it at the National and I fell in love with it again. To me, it's the most attractive Cy Young card I think that's out there. Maybe the T3 than this card. So it's popular. You can see a SGC3 recently sold for $6,000. So obviously, I would be looking in that 2 to 3 grade would be my max, type grade I'd be looking for, price wise. Obviously, the key thing for me is the red color, right? I want that red color to be vibrant. I don't care as much about the borders or even centering. I would take the color over the centering as well.
I
Like
agree. Color and registration on this card is like really, really important.
yeah, I don't want one that the red isn't vibrant or is dull or has like stuff like a scuffing in the back of it. Because to me, it's about that uniform and the red background kind of really shining in the cards, and that's sort of my criteria.
I believe this is the same photo that is used in the um, 1903 set that came out. That I think it's called Breisler.
Okay, yeah, I'm not that familiar with that one. That's
Yeah, it's a really really popular set, really really rare.
yeah.
And it also has first cards of like Christy Mathewson,
Whew.
early cards of Wagner, Plank, Addie
Okay,
Joss. I mean,
wow,
it's loaded. But
wow,
it's the exact same photograph as in that set.
that's I need to look that one up. Yeah, that's some powerhouse cards right there, and I think the Cy Young to me is like this is a card that is a lot more available than the Grover Alexander, but it's very popular. So again, a lot of people looking for this card, and it's one of those cards that doesn't take long to sell. Like if you have it, if you're a dealer, If you have a reasonable price on it, usually it sells pretty fast.
Well, when I first got into pre-war heavy, I think it was 2012. Um, one of my second pre-war car to buy was the T206 portrait of Cy Young,
Ooh,
and it was a toss-up between the T206 and the E90-1 because I really
ooh,
liked both cars.
yeah,
I got a better. The T206 was more expensive than the E91 at the time, uh, but I got a better deal on the T206, and I bought the T206. But this one here was a PSA 4. The T206 that I bought, the green portrait, was a 3.
wow.
I wish I had bought the 4 in this card.
Yeah, this is one of those cards that they call it like every pre-war collector at some point sees this card and goes like, I want it.
Yeah,
This is cool.
it's got a wow factor.
It does for sure.
Yeah.
All right, number 8 for Doug.
Okay. So as you can see right here, there's no VCP sales,
Yeah.
no sales data. Actually, there is only, I believe, one card on the pop report for either PSA or SGC. So again, this is kind of a ghost card. We know it exists, and but there's probably some out there raw and in the wild that haven't been graded. But even on the wheel baking, you would think that if there was a lot out there that was ungraded, that you would see like Babe Ruth or Ty Cobb copies of the wheel baking would be higher. And
Yeah.
even on those, there's only 1 or 2 of those. So it's just a
Yeah.
tough card.
I call it like the Mickey Mantle rule, right? You kind of judge how many cards exist of a player, in the 50s and 60s by how many Mickey Mantles are graded, because that gives you an idea of like there's 3,000 Mickey Mantle cards graded and there's only 200 of a player in the set. Unless that card's short printed, there's probably 3,000
Of
cards
the other
available,
players.
but no
Yeah,
one, there's haven't been sent in yet, right?
right,
So this is a good idea here. It's like if there's only 4 or 5 routes that's ever been sent in, there's good chance there's not that many more Joe Woods.
right. So again, it's a ghost card, but it's an important card for me. I would love to have the opportunity to at least have the opportunity to hold it in my hand and have a chance to make a trade or buy it outright.
So what
That
would
would
you
be
say
great.
this card would be worth? Like if it was like a number grade?
Um, wow. I really don't know, to be honest. I know what I would be willing to pay for a nice, attractive, let's say 3 or 4 copy.
Okay.
Um, $3,500.
Okay.
That's what it would be worth it to me.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's that's what worth is. I mean, it's um, comps really kind of go out the door. It's what you're
Right.
willing to pay, what someone's willing to pay for it. That's what it's worth. So
Well,
to
and
me, it's, if it was a nice, attractive card and it was a 1 of 1,
yeah.
you know, I'm not even going to put a upper limit on it.
Yeah.
Because you get excited when you actually get it in your hand, and my number of 3,500 could go right out the window.
Right. I just find it interesting that there's 200 cards in the set. I mean, that's a big set.
Yeah.
And a lot of players that probably only have a few cards that exist probably in these kind of sets.
Yes. If you look at the pops, I think I seen one card that had 3 and I'm not even sure who it was. I didn't recognize him. But I think there's only 60 cards of the 200 that have been graded.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of if someone were to get a card, the other 140, it'd be kind of like the like a find, like the first one ever found.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's
And that's
very
what I
interesting.
really like about these cards from this generation, this time period is with the different advertising backs. I just find those intriguing.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's like I said, players I like have cards in these sets too, and it's just great to see, and understand sometimes when you're at a card show, like you see some of these cards, you don't realize how rare some of them are until you kind of really get into those pop counts and understand, what sets are truly rare.
Jason, do you remember last year at the Nationals? The second day, I said, I want to go back to this one table because he had some nice 1917 advertising backs,
Hmm.
and he had a nice he had a wheeled baking speaker, and I
Wow.
went
No, I
back to
don't
look
remember the
at.
Trish speaker, but
I went
I
back to
remember you
look
seeing
at
it
it,
somewhere.
and the guy told me, he goes, "Yeah, that sold like 10 minutes after you left yesterday."
That's how it always goes, right?
Yeah, but I was so narrowly minded and focused on finding a 14 Cracker Jack Joe Wood or a Joe Wood that I, didn't already have.
Yeah.
Um, so I got to. I'm very narrowly focused, but I have to keep my vision open for cards like that also.
Yeah. No, Doug, like we all make mistakes, and I'm pretty sure I'll keep making mistakes and not buy something when I should have.
Well, that's all part of it.
Yep. Yep. You always learn.
Yeah.
All right. For me, number eight is, pretty pedestrian in terms of availability comparative to the last card, but this card is tremendously popular. Tremendously popular. It is a short print from the 53 set, but the 53 Willie Mays. I'm putting together the entire Maze run, so I'm down to the tougher cards, mostly 50s cards. I think all 50s cards. I think I have the 60s and 70s covered. So now I'm down to the really, really tough ones, and this is probably outside of his two rookie cards or his, you know, Topps rookie and the Bowman rookie, probably number three.
It's a much more attractive card than the 52 tops. Like you said, it has inherent centering problems. It has the dark background,
Mm-hmm.
which can be just make it look dark. And this one, when it is right, it is right.
Yeah.
As long as it has decent centering and it don't have any major problems, it's a gorgeous card. I mean, just look at it.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's probably the most attractive Willie Mays card that he has from the 50s. I would
I
put it up
agree.
there against almost any year. I think 54 Bowman is underrated from attractiveness, honestly. But
Yeah.
53 Tops is really attractive. It's probably his most attractive card from the 50s. Um, Super popular card. So you can see the grades and the prices here. I mean, I am mostly my Maze collection is today it's 6 or above. So if I look at a 6 card, I mean I'm looking between $7,000 and $8,000 for a 6. Um, I can't probably reach those 7 heights. So I'm looking between probably 5 and 6 is probably what I'm going to be shooting for from this card.
Now, we talked about this before we came on air. So let's say you're at a big card show or you're in an auction house and you find a PSA or SGC4
Mhm.
that is very, very attractive, nicely centered, um, because it's not a 6 or a
Mhm.
7. Would that still fit in your collection?
I think today it would. I think maybe 5 years ago I'd say automatically no.
Right.
Um, if it was well centered and had great color, that would be, with, let's say the corners were a little bit rough or had a crease in the back. I would be super happy with that card. I think the problem today is that those cards would get a lot of competition. I would have to pay more than I would have thought, 5 years
Right.
ago.
Like
Um,
maybe a full grade higher.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So then you have to kind of look at it like this: is it better to have a perfectly centered nice four over an off center, less nice looking five? And I think today I would say I'd rather have that four than an
Yeah.
off center low color five, just
I
because
agree.
the technical grade was higher. I would say I'd rather have the more attractive card right now.
Yeah. And it's
All
hard
right.
to find the scale of you want to have an attractive card for your collection, but at what cost? Because there are
Mhm.
certain cards that they are so rare, like what I'm hunting for. I I'm all right with an authentic as long as it's still attractive. I just
Yeah.
want to own that card.
Yeah.
And so, at some point, you have to determine, well, what means more to you. I mean, are you
Right.
a registry set person and you have to have, that high grade to keep your,
GPA.
GPA up there?
Yeah.
Or are you going to display it and it's going to be part of your personal collection and you just want a nice, attractive copy that you can live with?
Right.
Or do you get a really, really rare card and there may only be one, two, or three of them in existence. So grade kind of goes out the door.
Well, I think it's interesting, even on my cards I collect. I mean, there's a PSA, what is it, a 1.5 that's in of a 68 3D that's in the new REA auction,
Yes.
and a two just sold on buy it now for $14,000.
Yeah.
And yeah, because people are giving me a little bit of grief on the what I paid for my eight. Um, Now I'm kind of looking at these new sales, going like, well, I may have actually got a deal on an
Yeah.
eight. But what you're seeing is that people want the card so much it doesn't matter what the grade is.
Yeah.
Like they're paying $14,000 for a two
Right.
because they want the card, because it's the alpha and omega Clemente card to own. So it just shows you, like, yeah, for certain cards the grade doesn't really matter as much as it just having the card,
I
because
actually
the card
think that
itself is,
1.5 that's in auction right now is going to bring more than the two because it's a stamp back.
yeah, I agree. And
Yeah.
so that's what I'm saying. Like, you're going to have a 1.5 bring 20 grand,
Yeah.
probably. Um, and I paid, I think we ended up comping it out at around 60 grand for my eight. Um, I think I'm very comfortable with what I paid, and I think in the end, I'll look at it back in 20 years from now, probably, as I'm, getting ready to sell my collection. Like, I did okay. So,
Yeah.
all right. So moving on to Doug's number 7. So
Do you
very
see a
interesting card
trend?
here.
Do you see a trend here?
I see a very big trend that Doug's cards are very tough to find.
Again, this is also a standard biscuit um, back, advertising back, except the 1917 is even tougher than the 1921.
Oh wow.
Um, you know, 1917 was, World War One ramping up. You had paper shortages, paper
For
drives.
shortage, yeah.
You just had a lot of stuff going on. Where in 1921, you didn't have to contend with all that. So again, this one's going to be just a ghost card.
Yeah.
As you can tell, no sales, no data, nothing on the pop reports. We know it exists. Hopefully, it gets found and it comes to market.
Well, I think it's one of those things too that, by putting things out there into the ether, cards like this, if someone actually has it, maybe it works its way back to you as saying, hey, there's someone out in, Boston that has this card, or somewhere
Right.
else that actually has these cards. So, that's the one thing about the Northeast. Living out here is that there are these pockets of collectors it's like the hobby here has been, I think some of the older collectors and I call it the collectors from the 50s and 60s, right? That had a lot of these cards. You know, they're being passed down now, and you're seeing like some of these collections at these shows, where cards like this might be involved,
Yeah.
and hopefully at some point, some of those really rare cards come to auction or come to light. um, which is, you have these kind of White Plains shows here, and you have these kind of these Northeast shows. I do feel like there are some of these really old cards like this that might pop up one of these days.
Well, it seems like to me that, and I'm not 100% sure about the standard biscuit, but a lot of the advertising backs from this era come from the Northeast. You know, the New York and Boston
Hmm.
and Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area.
Yeah,
So I think the chances that they would be there would probably be, a lot better than in Indianapolis, Indiana.
yeah. Well, there's stories. I mean, if you talk to the old school collectors, that they would talk about driving to New York and Boston and going to thrift stores and going looking for these kind of cards, because again, a lot of them were this was sort of like an area that was heavy in these kind of cards.
Yeah,
And so they would be at, thrift stores, or they would be in like people's collections, and you would kind of put a ad in a paper, and you'd find some kind of crazy stuff. And Mr. Mint talks about that in some of his books. Like the Northeast was one of those areas that just had stuff like this,
right.
more than the Midwest for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so a trend for me. So first trend here is 53 Jackie Robinson. So I've been low key collecting Jackie for a little bit. Um, I have the 49 Bowman. Last year I got the 50 Bowman. So my goal every year is to get another Jackie Robinson card. So I need the 52, the 53, and the 54 tops still. I have the 55. I have the 56. I had the 49 Bowman. I had the 50 Bowman. So
Nice.
I'm getting closer. Last year I picked up the 50 Bowman in a 6.5, which I felt was a really strong card, and the grade was nice. It's kind of a combination of a nice card and a nice grade.
And
And
50
so
Bowman is probably my favorite of his early cards.
I think it's tremendously undervalued. And I did a little video about it where I talked about just how rare 50 Bowman Hall of Famer and cards are. I mean, 50 Bowmans are insanely low pop. If
Yes.
you want to talk about 50 cards, they are ghost cards comparatively. Yeah, they're not ghost cards like Doug's ghost cards, because Doug's cards are almost like 101s. But for a 50s Hall of Famer, those 50 Bowman, some of those guys are in the 20s. For cards graded 6 or above.
Yeah.
Like 20 total cards, and they'll be like 50 total graded. For a Hall of Famer. So, any of those 50 Bowman Hall of Famers, Warren Spahn, Bob Feller, Jackie Robinson, Duke Snyder. I mean, all those guys are super rare pop, low pop comparatively to any other year.
Right.
Um, but on this card, obviously it's the attractiveness. This is again one of the most attractive sets ever made. There's a lot of people who will say the 53 Tops is the most attractive vintage set made post-war. That it is the most attractive set. It's got these painted images. They're just and it's hard to argue when you put this whole set together and look at it, that there is a nicer set out there than the 53 top set. Obviously there's a mantle in it as well, because unfortunately in 54 and 55 or in 54 you actually don't have a 54 tops mantle at all. um, so and you don't have a 55 tops mantle either. So it's just those sets are very attractive as well, but 53 actually has your big dogs, Maze, Jackie, and Mantle all in one set. Which you don't see that in 54 tops. You don't see that in 54 Bowman. So again, I think this is one of those sets that just transcends. Now, as far as value, it's very similar in value. It's we talked about with the Maze, it's about $1,000 or $2,000. If you look at the average price between the two, a little bit lower than the Maze. It's not a short print, like the Maze card is. Um, but still very strong card. And so again, to get between that 5th and 6th grade, you're talking $3,000 to $4,000 depending on the holder. Um, and again, an attractive 3 or 4. If it was super well centered and had great color, I would definitely consider it. To kind of add another Jackie to the collection, kind of like one a year. So like, it's going to be one a year till I get the 48 leaf, and then it's going to be like, okay, what do I do? Do I complete the set with the 48 leaf? And don't even get me started on the Bonds bread cards and all the really tough food issues that he has. That's sort of like the advanced version of the Jackie Robinson collection. I'm just doing the basic Jackie Robinson collection right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful card. Yes.
All right,
Well,
moving on.
you were looking for it at the Nationals last year.
Yeah, it was tough, and the dealers are kind of laughing at you too. They're like, "Yeah, if I had one, I would have, it would already been sold." Is kind of what
Yeah.
they were all saying, because everyone was walking around looking for that card too. So, um, all right, Doug, number 6 here, still in the Joe Wood world.
Yeah. Now this one here, I think this is a feasible card as far as a goal for this year.
Yeah, I'm surprised that 7. That's a pretty high grade for this year.
I bid on this one,
Ah,
and I
ooh,
was the underbidder on this card.
wow.
Uh, it was just bad timing on my part as far as my cash flow at the time. So I had set a budget in advance, and it exceeded it, and I just couldn't stretch the limits at the time. I would love to have this card. Now, this is a tougher one, but it's not a ghost card. They are
Yeah,
out there. They're out there, and
the back is cool.
oh yeah, the Boston store. You would think it's from Boston, but it's not.
Yeah, I would have thought Boston for sure.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a tough card, but I think I can I think I can probably pull this one off this year. Now I may not be a 7. I guarantee it won't be a 7. But I'm all right with not having the high grades. I would love to have that high of a grade.
Yeah,
But I'm all right with a nice attractive card. I just want it to I just want to own it,
yeah.
have it in my collection. So
No, I
this
totally
one's this
understand.
one's totally within my grasp.
No, this is a cool card, and I'd love to see you get it. And I think this is one, like you said, like it's very feasible. So I think that's the thing about it too is, you know, both of us have cards that are more feasible than others to find and get.
Right.
Um, and I think
And
that's
that's
what
the
makes it
reason
fun.
this one's on the list, just because this is one of the few that's on my list this year that I'm realistic about. Because you don't want to take all your motivation and the wind out of your sails.
Yeah, it's like all the cards on my list are 101. So
Right.
um, yeah, my number 6 is a card that it's numbered out of 100, and so this is kind of my first more modern 90s card here. From a we were talking a little bit before we started is this card has become a big deal with Griffey collectors. 99 Mystique, there was like 3 inserts that were here. Um, from the established set or from the Mystique set, there was Destiny and Prophetic. The Prophetic were numbered out of 2,000, and the Destiny were numbered out of 1,000. The established is the Big Dog, numbered out of 100. Now, this card, the reason why it's so expensive, right? Is it's like a refractor. So when you hold it in your hand, it's hard to see from this photo because it's hard to get a good photo of a refractor sometimes, but it's insanely shiny and it's got a rainbow finish. So it shines from different colors. So when you hold it in the light, it goes from purple to red to green. So it has this kind of like color change effect when you look at it. And it's a very deep refractor, unlike what they make today. And it's double sided, so it's a refractor on both front and back. You have that same rainbow effect on both sides. This card was only made one time. There's never been another version of this card ever made. So if you want an established Griffey, this is the only one you can ever get. Like a refractor, there's hundreds of Griffey refractors, but there's only one established. And this card has now become a key part of most Griffey collectors. If you tiered it, you know how people do the S tier, the tier A, B, C, D, and S. This is an S tier Griffey card. It's a status symbol for most Griffey collectors. Griffey collectors try to hoard this card. Like it's just really hard to find it. You can't even, there was one that sold in 2023. There's probably been some private sales of this card amongst collectors on, different discords or different, collector groups. But in general, it's people hold it. They want it. They hold it. They're not selling it. So trying to find a collector who actually wants to sell this card is tough. Um, I saw one at the National a couple years ago, part of a full set. So frustrating too. I walked up to the dealer that had it, and he's like, "I'm not breaking my setup. I'm going to sell as a full set." I think he wanted $10,000 for the full set of established cards. I think there's 10 cards in the whole set. So he wanted like $1,000 a card. Well, some of the cards in the set aren't worth $1,000. So I was like, well, I don't know if that's, it's a little expensive, for that set. Come back, the next day, and I noticed that he didn't have the Griffey card anymore. And he had sold the Griffey and the Jeter. Some guy offered him $5,000 for both cards, and he sold it. And I'm like, well, if I known you'd have done that, bought the card. I'd have offered you something like that. I didn't know you would have done that. So that's the last time I saw the card in the wild, like literally sitting on someone's table. So is it a ghost card? No. Is it a card? If you had enough money, you could probably pry it out of someone's hands, probably. But again, I'm looking $4,000 to $6,000, and even at that point, somebody might try to really gouge you to get it out of their hands if you really need it. So, but for me, the one thing I'd say to Doug is, from my perspective, this to me is the most attractive Griffey card made in the 90s. It's not, it and the 97 finest gold embossed refractor are the two most attractive Griffey cards made in the 90s. Is this
I
card
would
here?
like to see this in hand because I imagine just by looking at that picture that it is really, really deep and colorful.
It's so much different than a normal refractor. It's so well made. It's really the epitome of technology and attractiveness of a card. They just did it right. It's hard to explain it until you see it, and you're like, okay, now I know why people love this card. So again, that's why to me it's in that god tier of just one of the best looking cards ever made. And so the Griffey collectors just go gaga over this card, and I do too. Like when I saw it for the first time, I'm like, I have to have this. It's a very expensive card now because of it, and it's numbered too. Unlike a lot of cards from that time period, even like the 96 select mirror gold refract or mirror gold cards, which theoretically are out of 30, they're not numbered. This card's numbered, so and no one has ever seen a backdoored version. So this is one of those cards that doesn't suffer from that backdoored kind of like hidden, could have been printed more than that 100 cards,
Do you think
so
it's
this
because it's Fleer?
yeah, I think it's also because honestly, these cards you can't, like, from a, let's say, duplication perspective, or I just feel like, yeah, this is one of those high end sets that was made during a time period where they probably didn't actually want to overprint it because it probably was really expensive to make.
Yeah.
So this is a card, and they were, the way they came out, they were covered. They had a plastic coating on top. You had to peel the card off. So from that perspective, I can't imagine they made extras because of how hard they were to make and
Yeah.
probably how expensive they were to make. That they
Yeah.
didn't do like tops. Like they could probably print 2 or 3 extra sheets of refractors just to whatever. This card was very difficult to make. So yeah, it's my first 90s card, but You see a few more as I go through. Um,